Starting. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ed Innovator webinar today. It's May 20th, 2014, and we're all here today to talk about a really exciting open online collaboration that is for educators, i.e. you, and it starts up in a matter of weeks. It's called Making Learning Connected. You might have also, it's often known as clmook. That's its nickname and hashtag. Today we're here to talk with some folks who have been putting into place plans for this year's event. And so we can figure out, we can all find out more about what it is and how educators in their communities can participate. So thanks for joining us tonight. I'm your host. I'm Christina Cantrell from the National Writing Project, and I'm logging in here from my home, actually, in Philadelphia. I'm representing a larger staff team from the National Writing Project that's working on the Ed Innovator initiative, and my colleagues will put a link into the chat to that website. Ed Innovator is a network of networks supporting educators in exploring connected learning in a variety of ways. And clmook, or Making Learning Connected this summer, is being offered by Ed Innovator. It's also being offered at a time when many organizations are getting together, including the Mozilla Foundation and their Maker Party, to kind of create a larger summer umbrella and a sort of ecosystem of events that we're calling a summer to make, play, and connect. So clmook will be part of making, playing, and connecting this summer, and we're really excited to talk about it and for you to join us. With me today are colleagues of mine who've been taking various roles in setting up the structures that will support clmook and happening again this summer. And I just wanted to say that it ran last year, 2013, during the summer, and several of us here were also involved in that happening in a variety of ways. So with us tonight, let me see if I get, and my screen is Chad Sansing, Joe Dillon, Karen Fasnacht, Kevin Hodgson. At the NWP behind the logo is Maranatha and Jordan, and then myself. And I'll just make space here now for all of you guys to introduce yourself. And I was thinking maybe you could, tell us where you're located in your site, and then maybe just give us a sentence about the way that you're helping to make space and opportunities for things to happen this summer at clmook. So maybe Chad, you're on my left.
Sure. All right. Hey, my name's Chad Sansing. I teach middle school language arts in Stanton, Virginia. I'm with the Central Virginia Writing Project, and I'm looking forward to working with clmook this summer as kind of a maker coach, helping the make leads design the experiences they want to share with people, helping individuals who sign up accomplish their goals for what they want to make. And I'm also kind of representing Mozilla's WebMaker project to help teach the web with clmook as well.
Okay, on my screen, you're next, Joe.
All right, so I'm Joe Dillon, and I'm with the Denver Writing Project, and I'm an instructional technologist with Aurora Public Schools. And let's see, and then my role in the MOOC has been to, I think we'll go into it a little bit more later, but I've been helping different writing project sites and different networked organizations prepare and plan for leading the different make cycles that will make up the MOOC. So that's been exciting work leading up to this this summer's MOOC.
Excellent. And Karen?
Hi there, I'm Karen Fasnacht, and I'm here in a this week hot and windy corner of Arizona down by the border with Borderlands Writing Project. And I guess I'm kind of a utility player on the clmook team, working on some of the technical infrastructure, especially the Make Bank, and also doing lots of online community building.
Excellent, thank you. And Kevin.
Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Hodgson. I teach 6th grade out in Western Massachusetts and part of the Western Mass Writing Project. And my role with the MOOC this summer is going to be to help support people who are coming in, navigating through the make cycles and having a lot of fun making things and playing around with learning and reflecting. And so myself and a number of other people are going to be there to help support people, offer suggestions and comments, and just have a great time.
Yay, great. Thank you guys, and thanks everybody for, thank you for all making the time here. Thanks everybody for watching tonight. And I wanted to, before we get started in sort of more conversation, and we want to keep this pretty casual, but also like sort of make sure we, you know, share the information that we want. If you're watching from the Hangout, at the Ed Innovator blog page, we do encourage you to jump into the chat room, either to converse with others or to send questions. Like, we'd really like to hear from you. What would you like to know about making learning connected? What would help you connect with us this summer and participate in CL MOOC? So feel free to post questions and also start your own conversations, and we'll also be posting links to resources throughout the webinar. If you're watching from somewhere else, you'll find the chat at the URL on the screen. All right, so it looks like Karen is ready to kick us off here. I wanted to just start by sort of interviewing you guys a little bit so that we can get some of the basic facts and things out about the MOOC, and then maybe we'll hear some questions from other people. But, you know, I mentioned that Ed Innovator is offering Making Learning Connected this summer. And I'm sure that sounds great in many ways, but we know that many people already have this question, you know, what exactly is this thing? So Karen, do you want to kick us off and try to sort of unpack that a little bit?
Sure. I'll just start off with just the very basics of what CL MOOC is and sort of how it's different maybe from other MOOCs. So we call this MOOC a massive open online collaboration, which is a little bit different than a course because we really do see it as a collaboration of the community getting together to really explore making, connecting, and just experimenting with a lot of different things. And it's very different than a traditional course in terms of being, you know, a lot of content being pushed out, like readings and videos. And this is a more sort of hands-on experience where you'll get an opportunity to collaborate with a lot of different people, exploring as a background the connected learning principles.
Anybody else want to jump in?
Well, I think that's a really good overview, Karen. And I think part of the theme and the message is that teachers need to be learners too, and you know the best way to learn is by doing things. So, you know, part of how the make cycles work is that we offer up teams will offer up suggestions for pursuing different elements of playing around with things and really pushing their boundaries around the idea of learning, and not just technology either, even though it's, you know, we have a number of online spaces that will probably be up and running, but we're encouraging people to get away from the computer too and do things and then share back into the big collaboration so we can learn from each other. And if we think about some of the things that happened last summer and all the incredibly exciting offshoots that happened as a result of one person sharing and inspiring others, I mean, that's what we're hoping to set the stage for this year too, is tapping in the knowledge and interest of the people who are in there. And you know, I think we all see our job as a way of, you know, making the ground fertile for all sorts of different directions.
Anything else to add to that?
I'll just add that there's a lot of flexibility built into CL MOOC, and we've really done this very intentionally, and we want people to participate in whatever way works for them. So if you want to come for a week and then step out for a couple weeks, or come and go, or really structure it however works for you, this whole collaborative experience is designed with that in mind.
And Kevin mentioned make cycles. Could someone sort of talk about the make cycles a little bit? Just sort of in general, what they are and why.
I can talk about that a little bit. You know, in planning the first round of this last summer, we really weren't sure in terms of, you know, we knew we didn't want it to be a course, and we knew we weren't really planning for instruction, and so how to segment the MOOC was a question that kind of hung over our planning last year, and we wanted to foreground making as learning, and so, you know, instead of doing units or weeks, we settled on make cycles. Right. And that was something that seemed like it resonated with the community we were working with, and it certainly it probably communicates the spirit with which we're trying to offer prompts and suggestions for how people might participate. So that's what a make cycle is. Most simply, it's how we organize the MOOC.
And one of the things I remember Paul Allison bringing to us last summer too was this idea that you know, teachers are interested in learning, of course, and interested in teaching, but they're also interested in lots of different things. And it is the summer, and you know, we're working in this summer to make, play, and connect too. So it is, in some ways, kind of a way for people to bring their interests forward and their passions forward in these iterative cycles.
Yeah, and I think that that term "make cycle" is there's a reason why we came with that term, which is the idea of there might be some beginning where we introduce an idea, but there's really not necessarily an ending. It all depends on participants and their time in the summer and their interests. And some people might stick with one make cycle the whole time, and some might jump from cycle to cycle. We're going to be introducing them staggered over the summer, but it doesn't have to be sequential. People can jump in wherever they want and get into any cycle that they want and get out of it what they need to. And so I think we try to see it less as a course framework of this week we're doing this and then we're moving on to this. The idea of a cycle is that it's going to be circling through and you kind of spiral in where it meets your needs.
Okay. Great. And so what's just an interview? What is the first day of the cycle? When does it start? And
so a make cycle typically starts on a Monday, and the way we launch it is anyone who signs up is essentially on an email list, and so they'll receive an email newsletter sort of explaining the week, and then that newsletter also ends up being the home page on the blog site that organizes the MOOC. And so whether you check your email inbox or whether you go to the home page on the website, you'll see the intended organization for the make cycle kind of launched on a Monday, and then from that point on, you basically it's really interesting and fascinating to me like how quickly participants take up the make and start to iterate on the make. And so at that point, you can kind of look at the Google Plus community and sort of start to gather the direction that things are going. And then towards the tail end of the week, facilitators start to curate some interesting products, creations, ideas, etc. And they really go from prompting making to prompting reflecting. And so that's essentially what a make cycle is. It's a little bit of a time to start making and exploring and following your interests, looking at what other people are doing and seeing what interests you about what other people are creating. Right. And then towards the end of the week, it's about synthesizing what you've learned or created.
Yeah. That's really interesting. That I love how you said what you're interested in, and then also learning from other people what you might not know you're interested in, but you develop these interests socially too. And so, did you want to give us the sort of nuts and bolts here?
That's exactly, you took the words right out of my mouth. So the dates for CLMOOC this year is it'll start on June 13th, and it'll go for just about 6 weeks through the end of July. And there's more information at the Making Learning Connected FAQ site, which will pop into the chat, and that's where you can sign up as well to get the email updates that Joe talked about.
Cool, excellent. Thanks, guys. I think that was a good overview. And of course, if anybody has more, we see that there are some questions that are coming up in the chat. So let's talk about a couple other things and then get to the questions, because I think the questions are really important and great conversation starter. And but I know, Joe, I wanted to turn back to you because I know you've been, since last year, you've been thinking a lot about, well, I won't put the words in your mouth, but what I understand is sort of, you know, the ways that we saw people taking up leadership last year, and how could we actually ask more people to take up more leadership this year and have more voices and more ideas and people taking different kinds of leadership and open up more spaces in these iterative cycles. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit about the work you've been preparing with that and who else is in this mix, because there are a whole bunch of other people who are working to get this thing in place right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, so as a facilitation team, you know, last summer we all had our reflections, and kind of a common reflection toward the end of any given make cycle was, you know, at the end of a week that a facilitator supposedly led, you'd say, "Whoa, what just happened? You know, what role did I really play in there?" Because a MOOC is intended to be massive, and because it's open and really participatory, a lot of times what you intend plays out differently than you expect. And so facilitators were always trying to make sense of what happened in the week and what is the direction of, you know, the participant interests and participant learning, etc. And things that stood out for us once we got, you know, through our own reflection was, you know, looking very closely at the ways different folks were taking, you know, the opportunity that open learning provides to step up and initiate things, or to share something that may not have been explicitly outlined in a weekly newsletter or something. And so what we really saw emerging was participant leadership, and so it played out in the digital spaces, whether it's, you know, folks going off on what would seem to be a tangent and then developing into collaborative, creative activities. And also, we heard all kinds of reports from writing project sites about how they would take up the work maybe in a face-to-face environment at their local sites. So whether it was somebody pointing their summer institute to the digital space and just, you know, trying to make sense of it together, or whether it was someone looking forward in the MOOC and taking something from a make cycle and turning that into a more hands-on, small group creative activity. So that type of leadership was something that, you know, it inspired us. It, you know, to some degree, I think it surprised us, and we certainly wanted to build on it. So the ways we've gone about starting that were, number one, we wanted to make things accessible. So, you know, we had to unpack how it is we led the MOOC, and we did some of that work last summer in terms of documenting our processes after the fact. But even this, leading into this summer, what we've tried to do is just be pretty specific about what it is we would do every week, and so there's no real mystery, and if there's magic, it's probably on the participant side, less than the facilitator side. So just being really tangible about what folks have done to lead these makes, and then once we were kind of sure that we could share out our processes and invite other folks into it, it's just been that. It's been a little bit of beating the bushes, and in some cases the bushes have chased us down because they're excited to take up the learning opportunity that is kind of facilitating a week. So reaching out to a few different writing project sites, and again, like a networked organization, we have several different sites that are leading makes. From I'll just name them really quickly. I know Boise State Writing Project is leading the first make cycle. The second is the Northern California Writing Project, and Peter Kittle has a small team there. And then the third week is still a question mark, although there's some deliberation and consideration. But at this point, it's a little bit of a question mark in terms of who will lead it. And then after that, I may be getting the order wrong, but I do know we have Keene University Writing Project is leading a make cycle, and then so is Hudson Valley Writing Project. So we're certainly excited about the opportunity to distribute the leadership, and we're really excited about the folks who've begun planning.
Great, thanks. And I wanted to give a shout out to our colleagues at the U Media Network too, because one of the U Media groups will be another network community of mentors who work in U Media and Learning Labs, often with youth, and a group from Philadelphia that call themselves the Maker John team. They'll be leading a week too. So we're pretty excited that the MOOC is able to open up these opportunities, and really appreciate all that we learned last year, all that you guys learned last year that's helping to think this way this year. So welcome, Anna. Thanks for joining us. So I'm sort of in interview mode right now, so I'm going to toss you a question, but do you want to introduce yourself first?
Hi, I'm Anna. What else do we need to know?
Oh, yeah,
I just came in off of a heavy transit.
Where you're located? We were trying to geolocate ourselves, and then like what are some of the structures that you're helping to put in place for the MOOC to happen this summer?
Okay, well, I think actually Kevin's going to go first and talk about some things first about around our planning, just so I can get a moment to get my feet underneath me here. But to locate myself, I've been in transit for the last 3 hours in New York City. So underground, on ground, 3 different types of transit. So that's where I am. I'm in motion, and I need a moment to get here and get still.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. So, yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Well, what I was going to say earlier, and thinking about it as we were talking, is a couple things. First of all, listening to Joe talk about all the different groups that are going to be involved this summer is really exciting, because I think each one will bring a different sense of energy to what's happening in the online spaces, and different perspectives. And I think the more people, the more collaboration, which always makes it a better experience. But one of the things we want to make sure that we mention too is that there is no one kind of digital space where all this happens in. So we really take to heart the idea of the wide open nature of learning. And although we might, we'll probably kind of have some things happening in Google Plus and with Twitter chats and Google Hangouts like this. We're hoping that people find the spaces that they're comfortable in and make those spaces their own as part of the connections that they make, which makes it a little daunting too if you're coming into a program like this. But it's good to know that people have their own domains and own spaces that they're in, that they're setting the kind of anchor in a way that that allows them to stretch out from there too. So I just want to kind of make sure that it's kind of clear that there's a really wide open nature to how people participate. And one of the things we noticed from last summer too is that there were plenty of things going on kind of outside even our view that we only are finding out about now, which I think is really interesting. That idea of the MOOC was stretched out so far that we still haven't seen the kind of edge of the horizon there.
And just building on what Kevin said, I would say for people who are new to CLMOOC, don't feel like you have to follow every space or even that you have to follow everything within a space. Choose the spaces that work for you. And I think G+ is a pretty friendly space where there will be a lot of activity going on around CLMOOC, and even there already is, and maybe we can pop the G+ community link into the chat. But if you're already on Twitter and that's a good place for you, follow the CLMOOC hashtag. And if you have a blog and you're excited about blogging, write about it there and post links for people. But don't feel like you have to do all of this stuff. Just sort of pick the places that are most comfortable for you, and there'll be a lot of sort of cross-posting, and wherever you are, you will be in the mix. So again, just the flexibility of it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, I think. Wherever you are, you're there.
Nice. So I guess there's a couple things that I just wanted to name, and the make bank being one of them. So it might be helpful because it came up, and it might be helpful to talk about that a little bit too. But one thing I wanted to ask before we talk about that is just because Anna, you had talked about designing for possibilities as a way to think of designing structures that help for possibilities to emerge. And everybody's been talking about some of the designs that are being put in place so that things that we can't even predict at this point will happen during the summer. And I was just wondering if you wanted to sort of talk about that from the perspective of like how that supports, how you think of that supporting learning and sort of our pathways as we go. What that helps to support, and what you've seen happen this last year, and some of the things you're looking at this year too in the
Okay. Yeah, great. So I think that I spent most of my career as a classroom teacher really focused on planning for outcomes and helping our students meet outcomes that had high expectations and took them to the next level, had them gain some traction, some new ideas, new knowledge. And I think that came a lot from my training as a classroom teacher, that was my end goal, is to have them meet outcomes. And I think that it took a little bit of, I think really when I actually stepped out of my own classroom and got to watch students working and teachers working across a lot of classrooms and in a lot of different spaces, when I really began to take seriously what youth can do, that a framework of looking at designing for outcomes doesn't take into consideration. So when we have an outcome, we may take a pretest to see if students can do that, certain skills or have certain knowledge. And then we plan it. And then I don't know how much we really actually plan accordingly. Like how much do we really just revise what we do? But so much of what we do in writing, it's not something that we can do a pretest on and then say, oh, you hit this level, now let me adjust my planning and go from there, and then we hit this outcome. So after I watched so many different class spaces and got to know and just to kind of see across those places, that's when I was really thinking about what I would rather do, and I've started to do with the youth that I work with now, is that is start with the outcomes as that's our starting point. That's not our finish line. That's our starting line. Say these are actually the tools and the things you're going to use in order to make, in order to write, in order to create, in order to make sense of your world. And that has really it's been this beautiful way, kind of revolutionized my own teaching, in the sense that now instead of planning to hit something that's already predetermined and that I've predetermined almost in a sense that they can't do, it's almost like I come in from this can-do perspective. We can do these things. Here's our starting line. Our starting line are these things that would have been on my rubric, my ending rubric. And then we can go from there. We can say, oh, you have some experience with intros already. You're really killer at intros. Well, I'm not going to spend any time with intros, and you move on from there. So I think in terms of how we're planning for the summer and the MOOC is kind of that same way. Here are a bunch of tools, right? Here are a bunch of things that might have been an outcome to someone else, like learn how to use a Vine. Might have been an outcome in an old school kind of planning for a MOOC, but instead it's letting tools, starting with some, and then letting some other tools emerge out of that, and just seeing where we go with it, and seeing what it is that we can learn. And another quick thing that I've been thinking about quite a bit, and I don't know if this, we'll see if it all makes sense when I get finished here. But this last year I tried roller derby for the first time. And I'm a little old to be trying something like that for the first time in the sake of my body, but I tried it anyway. And I got out there on skates. I hadn't been on skates since let's just put it this way. It's been at least 30 years, if not more, since I've been on skates. And I got out there, and there was a couple good days of training. They're like these training sessions. And this, you know, a couple weeks in, I took the biggest biff that you could imagine. I mean, I just biffed it hard. It really hurt. It really hurt. But I found myself on the ground laughing so hard. Like, laughing. So I've never been so bad at something in such a serious way. And it was so fun. Like, it was... I realized for the first time, one of the things we do as adults is we like strip our lives of things that we're not good at, right? We strip our lives of things that are slightly outside of our comfort zone or our experience zone, and we create these bubbles around, you know, whether it's our career, and that's what I am, that's what defines me, that's what I do, that's what I know, and I get really good at it, right? We get really good at one or two things. And we make this really nice cushion around ourselves. And the youth that we work with don't have that liberty, right? They're constantly being asked to do things that they're probably not good at. They're probably, you know, whether it's science labs that it's the equivalent of biffing really hard on a track. By the way, no one had hit me. I just laid out. So, you know, so in a sense, like, I'm just thinking that you know, whether it's science labs or whether it's writing it, you know, an essay, or whether it's you know, poetry that just they don't have a knack for, we're constantly asking them to push into these other zones, modes of making meaning, different ways of trying of expression, ways to different career paths and disciplines that they need to try. And I just thought, you know, it's a beautiful thing to do that in the summer, is to really start thinking about a summer as a space for me as an adult to constantly be taking on and trying these new things. And then that's really learning, right? So that's like the lifelong learning. It's not just getting better at the things we're already good at, but it's also having that experience of being really bad at something and learning from it. And okay, so how does that apply to planning for possibilities? I think that part of what we're trying to do is lay out enough of a grid work that people can enter anywhere. Enter where you're comfortable, but then you could always reach out and try something brand new that you're probably really not good at. Like, it might be coding this summer. It might be you've never even tried it before. You don't even know what those words mean, right? Or those series of letters that are, you know, have some meaning. Whether it's any of those things, that might be one way to think about participation in this MOOC, in this collaborative, is to think about it in a way of taking the opportunity to be a learner.
That was such an awesome story, Anna.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling it's going to follow you also. Or follow all of us. As Joe said, you know, what emerges is roller derby.
Well, it's a great story of taking chances, I think, and kind of going into something new and trying to learn from it, and, you know, bring your life a little further along than it was before you got on those skates.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So I think that one of the questions, well, I know one of the questions that came up already in the chat was, how do we sort of talk to our communities? Maybe it's our writing project communities, maybe it's our, you know, schools, our PLNs, maybe it's our communities of educators who work outside of school, like networks of people you'll be connecting with this summer and summer camps and everything. Oh yeah, I forgot the make bank question, but we'll go back to that. But okay, so so yeah, in terms of like talking to people about the MOOC and inviting them to participate, and what do you think are some good ways to? I mean, I think Anna just made a beautiful invitation, you know, to be a learner, and thinking about your own communities. Are there other invitations like that that you would make?
One of the things that I think about is, you know, how do we allow any number of teachers an opportunity to dig in and experience, like, what it might be like? You know, I mean, to come back to Anna's important roller derby story, I think that, you know, we all know, like, there are some people who are inclined to try out roller derby. At the same time, we also know that, you know, if you want more people to try out roller derby, you want to create a really safe space, and you want to even want to have maybe a talk beforehand about what makes us nervous, what's possible in our first effort with roller derby, etc. Right? And so I think about how when we have access to some willing adults who might be interested, that instead of writing a URL on a whiteboard, we might actually ask them to dig in for a few minutes, or we might ask them to talk back to it, or we might you know, launch an open-ended activity and just see where it goes and chart sort of ideas and questions at the end. Because I think that for many of us, you know, engaging in online communities is way more daunting than roller derby, right? Especially if we've been, you know, so many of us are frustrated by technology, you know, a little bit here and there daily. So for some of us, that really looms large. And so how do you create a safe space? And we're not saying that massive open online learning is for everyone, but, you know, everyone can reflect on it, think about it, push back on it, and everyone can try to make sense of these online spaces. So by giving folks an opportunity to make sense and sharing their fears and their interests might be probably the most, I guess, you know, supportive introduction. Because there's a lot of ways we could introduce it in ways that aren't supportive.
I think it's also worth noting that while the core experience here is online, there are also lots of opportunities to take this into face-to-face spaces. And we know from last year that many groups did a lot with clmook content and activities in face-to-face spaces, and sometimes didn't really participate as much in the online space, and that's totally fine. Again, it's all about sort of what works for you. So, like, I'm in a place where I'm in a very remote place. I don't have people around me, so the online space is great for me because it gives me an opportunity to really connect with people. But if you're in a face-to-face space, that's a great place to sort of play with the things we're doing in clmook as well.
I just wanted to offer that last year I was in I had an opportunity. So during the MOOC last year, there was a toy hack where you were invited to take a toy apart and make a few toys and make something new. It was pretty great. And then I had an opportunity to work with a group of teachers in Philadelphia face-to-face. And my friend's son brought his box of toys, and that he wanted them to hack. and all us adults kind of stood around like this box of toys, like kind of unsure and everything. And he goes, "Oh, it's really easy. So you pick this up and you take its head off, and then you do this and you do this." And he like modeled it in 2 seconds and made this little thing. And we were all like, "Oh, okay." And we just dove in. And it was really freeing, both the invitation to hack a toy from the owner of the toys and to do it together in this space. And then we were able to like post our pictures online in the larger community, and this was happening in this big open online thing, but we also did it together. And we had saws and we had glue guns and we had all this crazy stuff and kind of helped each other make these things. So that was really fun.
That's kind of a nice segue to the Make Bank, because what happened last year, and in sort of all of these experiences that I've had that are sort of these more connectivist MOOCs, is the best ideas for things to do come from the community itself. And especially in something like this where, we really want people to explore what's of interest to them and what's going to move their learning ahead. And there's no way that a group of facilitators can anticipate, what's of interest to people in the community. And also we just, the best ideas come from the crowd. So in thinking about this sort of collaborative, peer-driven environment, we drew from the inspiration of DS106, which is the digital storytelling community, and they have an assignment bank where anyone in the community can contribute suggestions for assignments. And so last year we turned that into something we called the Make Bank. And the idea was really just to have a place to capture all of the great ideas for different kinds of makes that came up. And we had tons of these come in last year, and then other people could build on those. They could hack them and remix them, and we're going to continue to do that this year. And again, this is sort of another space that people don't have to participate in, but it's a way to, if you have a make project that you really want to share with people, to put it up there, or to draw on other makes that people have. And some people have also used those makes and pulled them into the classroom. So I know there was a question in the chat room about sort of what are some ways to move this from our professional learning experience and move it into other learning environments. And certainly one way is to take those make ideas and have the learners in your own environment build on those, or even add their own and sort of build that out. And that make bank has continued to develop even after clmook was sort of officially done last year. So we're excited about make bank phase 2 coming up this year.
That's great. Thanks, Karen. And Chad, I know that you have been diving into that Make Bank recently, and I'm wondering if you want to sort of share some of the work that you're doing and how that might connect in the summer too.
Yeah, sure. I should say that it's work that we're doing. Christina and I have been looking at the Make Bank and a few other makes that we're describing as kind of NWP's greatest hits on WebMaker, and we're building out activity kits that will help people kind of think of how to maybe approach those activities for the first time, both as participants and facilitators. And then we'll wrap them up inside of a teaching kit. So not only will there be these, makes, but there'll also be ways, suggested ways, to share them with others, to teach them, if you will, or to let people learn from them, and a larger progression, kind of like a mini institute or what have you in the parlance of the NWP, for people to take and remix and adapt and adopt, and all of the plans that are around these makes will be just as remixable as the makes themselves. And in true writing project spirit, many of them are tied right into writing, and I'm sure people watching now and some people who kind of tune in and catch up later on will recognize some of them, from the beautiful 6-word memoir to the beautiful animated poem, and a more recent zine make, and a few other things that we're putting together to represent both making with Thimble and Popcorn, so both web pages and also web native video for people and make leaders who are interested in those dimensions for their make cycles.
That's great, thanks. And I am wondering if it would be helpful to talk about writing and making a little bit. This is a big topic, so I hesitate to bring it up in the last like 15 minutes. But for our, we are the National Writing Project, many of us. Not everybody working on the MOOC is from the Writing Project, but the Writing Project's been helping to power the Ed Innovator work. And, and I think that what I see is, and we're working a lot on making these days, and I think some people have a question: how's making and writing? Like, what's that about? So, anybody want to jump into the fray there?
I will. I'll say some things, because I think writing as making ties into what brings me to work like this, and I think will help me just throw a couple words at the question Terry's been asking in the chat roll about bringing this out to your classrooms. So for me, I really enjoy working with people and connecting with people through opportunities like clmook, the making learning connected. We're making to learn, learning to make, and we're doing it in this connected way, because the real point of any cycle, the real point of the community, isn't to do these 5 things, or I think necessarily to accomplish these goals we said at the beginning. It's to bring people together, including leaders and participants who become leaders and leaders who become participants, to share their inspirations. Like, we're a group forming out of many networks, but we're bringing with us our pathways back into all these things that excite us and all these communities that support us in doing so. So for me, the metagame is seeing how writing and these other forms of making complement one another, because we're really living in a time where it's not unimaginable. In fact, it's quite possible to compose in any number of exciting ways using systems, using design, doing it more ad hoc. There's just so many ways to iterate on what it is you want to do, learn, discover, and make that I feel like it's time. And I think the writing project has done a good job, especially with Digital Is, recording some of the early efforts at this, to position writing as a way to maybe plan, reflect, process.
So I think we might have lost Chad. Is that right? Momentarily. And
I'm sorry. I was talking. Yeah, go ahead, Joe. I have my mute on. Yeah, I think we did lose him. Go ahead.
No, and I mean, I think we want to kick it on.
And the world doesn't end. In fact, it gets better. And then to imagine how you could do that in your classroom for your kids, or your mentees, or your children, or your friends, or your circle, or whatever. That's the takeaway for me. Getting used to thinking about how do I make learning less formal and more informal wherever I am.
Great, thanks, Chad. You did go out for a little while, but I think the pieces are connecting. So I wanted to pass it to Kevin, and maybe we can pick up on some of what Chad said to fill in the pieces.
Yeah, I mean, I think when the question around how writing and making come together, I think it's really important because thinking of my own classroom where we do things like hack board games and use paper circuitry, and this week we're kind of playing around with Rube Goldberg design inventions. Writing and composition is at the heart of it all. And as we think about the digital spaces that we write in and make videos in and record podcasts and audio and remix and all sorts of things, I think that it's really helping us expand this idea of what composition is and how all these different tools, along with the ones that we've traditionally used, are really coming together in really interesting ways. And for me, the idea of the making is really about playing, about jumping in and diving in, trying to think about ways that we can make something new out of what's already there and pull in different areas. And the writing is a huge reflection piece. I mean, I think that if we don't step back at the end of when we're doing things and think about what we've done and document it, it can easily be lost. It's that moment of reflection for a lot of projects with my students that's probably the most critical piece of learning. So the writing certainly is a huge part of it.
Great, thank you, Kevin. And Anna, do you want to pick up on this? You're on mute.
Sorry. Yes, so I too was thinking along similar lines that both that it's, like Chad was talking about, that it's relational and that learning is informal. We have formalized spaces of learning, but that learners, any learning that we have is relational, it's informal, it's between people. And it's the same thing, like what Kevin was talking about, how we make sense of our worlds. We have so many tools at our disposal now to make sense of our lives, of disciplines that we're studying, in ways that we didn't previously have them so accessible to us. Only certain people had access to videos, right? Video cameras. Only certain people had access to, toys that they could hack. I mean, that's a position of privilege in and of itself, right? Something as simple as that. And so, to think about the many ways that we can make sense of our world, and then what learning is this like relational, personal thing that we create as learners. It's not something that's done to us when we're not taught. We receive lessons, but we make them into something and make sense of them. So.
Oh no.
Did I jump out?
Yeah, it was at the so.
So, am I back?
You're back, yes.
Okay. So what I'm focusing on this summer in the MOOC is paying attention to how learners are making sense of their experiences in our MOOC, the CL MOOC, and their pathways, the pathways that they're creating across all of these opportunities, the tools that we have, the chats that we have. You know, what are you doing? So an invitation, I want to offer an invitation to people. If you're really interested in having that kind of reflective space, like Kevin was talking about a little bit earlier too, to have someone think with you about the learning that you're creating this summer, let me know. And we're looking for some people that want to think about that as they go through, and we'll be trying to map some of your learning pathways.
That's great, Anna. Thank you, and thank you for that invitation. And should we put your email address in the chat? Is that comfortable to you, or how should people?
Yeah, you know what? I bet. Let's do this. Well, that's easier. Yeah, let me figure out which email address that I'll do, since I'm making a move pretty soon, and I'll let you know, and then we'll put that on when we post this video. Does it need to go in now, or can it go in a little bit later?
No, we can put it after the video is posted.
Okay. And in the meantime, if people want to message me through Twitter, it's at Anna_PhD, and if they're on Twitter, they can use that. But I am making a change with my email, so let me get that up to you a little bit later.
Okay. Super, great, thank you. So we just have about 8 minutes actually, and I wanted to sort of do a round of, okay, so if someone's going to participate for the first time, what would you suggest their next step be? And then also I wanted to acknowledge that many people participated last year in Making Learning Connected. And so is there, what would you suggest to them this year? So maybe we can start with new folks who kind of interested, want to sort of figure out more. What would the next step be?
For new folks coming in, is that what you're asking, Christina?
Yeah, like if you just are getting interested.
Lace up the skates.
Lace up the skates.
It's seriously, just dive in, right? Check out the date that's coming. Sign up to get the first newsletter so that you can stay in touch, and get ready. The first day we'll lay out a make. Is it which site is doing our first make, Joe? Did you say Denver?
No, Boise State writing project.
Boise State. So get ready for it, and I say the first chance is just lace up those skates and get out there. I mean, wear pads because you will fall, but do it. I say dive in.
Yeah, dive in, and if you're comfortable kind of watching and then dive in, you should do that
true.
too. And
that's true.
I think that part of, if you're interested in what's going on, is definitely add your email to the website so you can get newsletters and kind of follow along when it fits your time frame and your interest. You can even poke around in the G+ community, because what we did was we kind of building this summer on top of kind of last year. So last year's still archived there. If you're just curious about the different projects, the makes that we did, they're all still mostly archived there. And you shouldn't be intimidated by that either, because we're going to go off in all sorts of new directions this year. And if you're coming back from next year, I think that part of what we hope is that you'll be pushed in all new directions this year, and that you'll recognize that new people need the kind of support that you got last year too, and that I think Chad had said we're all kind of all learners here, and kind of helping each other along on the path forward.
Yeah, and I would add, go ahead, Karen.
I would just echo what Kevin said, that just find a path that works for you. And if that's, if it's skating, great, and if it's not, great. Do what's comfortable. And if this is all new to you, just sign up for the emails and then see where it takes you. And don't feel like you have to, get on Twitter and sign up for everything if that's not what you want to do. But if you have a path that you really have something you want to do, make this your own and take it in the direction that you want to go in. But get involved somehow, and don't let the breadth of opportunities make you not participate. Because I think I know when I look at these MOOCs, sometimes I think, I'm never going to be able to keep up with this, or, it's summer. But this is one I think you can really dip your toes in and have a great experience however that shapes up for you.
I was just going to say, like, start with what seems really fun, and make sure you start with play, like Terry suggested in the chat. And then when that feels good and you kind of have found a place for yourself within the community and made those first few connections, band together and look at some of the things that are maybe delightful but a little bit challenging. And even if you lurk, never be afraid just to like throw something in that you find that's delightful. I remember last year, like, I don't even know if the service is around anymore. I suspect not. But like Visio took off like wildfire. People were like, check out this thing. It made an animated introduction to me based on social media. And then everybody, facilitators, everybody was like, Visio. And then there were Vine-offs and like who has the most kinetic 6-second Darren Aronofsky footage of making coffee in the morning. And it was all just from the community. It was great. So don't be afraid to share things that delight you that you've made, even if you think they're silly, because odds are other people will think they're silly too, and that'll be the selling point. People will just love it, and you'll make more connections, and it'll really be one of those nice moments of crystal clarity. Show us how fluid the distinction is really between teacher and learner, or leader and follower, or facilitator and participant.
Awesome.
I can't wait for the coffee vines again. Those
Yeah.
I'm bringing them back.
So I know Joe is in the middle of making vines this week, so just to say that if anybody wants to dive in early and do some social media and get some stuff out there, to invite your colleagues and your outer circles to dive in here with you this summer, please do. And Joe, if you can see Joe doing that right now in the G+ community and on Twitter. Right, Joe? Is that this week?
That's right. I've committed to making 7 vines in 7 days. That's almost a minute of work I've committed to.
Excellent. Good job. And I did want to see, I wanted to just like close with maybe hearing, besides a MOOC, I'm kind of curious if you guys have things you're looking forward to make this summer, if you have ideas already or things that you're playing with or materials you want to test or anything like that. So maybe we could just do some shout outs from like some things that might be on our head that we think would be delightful and fun to play with. And then we'll, wrap it for the night. So we could do it popcorn style, so anybody want to start?
More games, more print and play, lo-fi, teach the whatever games.
Excellent.
So Kevin and I have been brainstorming today on Twitter an idea to maybe do collaborative digital storytelling with vines. So I'm interested in maybe playing around with that a little bit.
Cool.
One of my goals is to try everything that Kevin tries. I can count on him. Like, I wake up in the morning, and I think I wake up early, but already Kevin will have posted some new thing that he has made, aka made written, right? Combination of those two. Some digital tool or offline tool or something like that. And all of the best things that people know that you're like, oh, Anna, you've got great ideas. You know all these platforms. I'm like, yeah, Kevin, thank you. So my goal is that I'm going to keep up with you.
Keep up with Kevin. That's quite a goal.
I've been thinking, I'm kind of dipping into the WebMaker Teach the Web right now, which I know Chad is kind of in there a lot. And because I'm doing this idea of diagramming out with my students around the kind of Rube Goldberg inventions, which I think is kind of really playful, I'm wondering how to make a kit in WebMaker that would tap into that idea somehow. So I have no idea how to do it, though. But so I might be asking Chad for some help around thinking about that.
Well, I was going to add one analog make that I've been thinking about. There's a cookie or a biscuit, really thin biscuit with chocolate in the middle that I love from northern Italy. but they're really impossible to get here. And then I realized, like, why don't I try to make one? Like, get a friend I know who actually is a good baker and see, can we make one of these things? So anyway, I wouldn't have thought about making it before. I would have thought about trying to find it or purchase it. And now I'm suddenly like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we can make this. We'll see.
It's cool. Share it with us.
Yeah. Send them out. End of mood. Joe, did you want to do? Sorry, I said I wasn't going to help people out then.
I was thinking about the, what can we hack, and I know there are plans to hack our writing, and I think about hacking games and even storytelling around games and and sort of our histories, etc. So I like the idea of playing with the notion of play and hacking.
Great. All right, well, we are at the top of the hour, so I think we should wrap for the night, but just encourage everybody to go to clmook.edinnovator.org/2014. And I'm sure Jordan is putting the links in the chat, and you can just sign up your email, and then you start to get the newsletters, and there's no commitment beyond getting a newsletter twice a week. So you're welcome to just have those come into your box and look at them, or you're welcome to dive right in, and the newsletter will guide you how to do that. You can also look for us already at the hashtag #CLMOOC over Twitter, and at the Making Learning Connected G+ community, which is open, and you're welcome to just join on in there too. Okay. Any good for the order comments, or should we close for the night?
We should wrap it up.
All right. Okay, everybody. Looking forward to connecting this summer, and thank you for making the time tonight to be together.
Great seeing you guys.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.